So I'm going to call the Ordinance Subcommittee meeting of April 18th at 6:02 p.m. All present. So looking at our agenda here, we were going to approve minutes from past meetings. However, I don't know if I think maybe JP didn't, so we'll just get those.
I sent them, but I'm not sure that everybody had a chance to review them.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, okay. Well, maybe we'll table that one, and if we have a chance at the end of the meeting, we can pick it up again. I don't know who you are, so I don't know if you're here for public speak time or not. But if you would like to speak about something that's not on the agenda, then you can do that.
Okay.
But if you'd like to speak about something that is on the agenda, then when we get there, you'll have time to give some input.
Okay.
Okay. So, a couple things tomorrow. Don't forget, we have our joint public hearing for 130 Cottage Street. And just to give a little bit of background, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but do you remember the zoning, the map we just did?
Mm-hmm.
So there was one piece, and I'd asked Jessica if we could just fix it when we were looking at the zoning map, so they wouldn't have to go back to it. And because of the notification of abutters, and because of the fact that, our purview was to look at the zoning map and try to fix inconsistencies. That was technically not an inconsistency, even though it is.
Okay.
It's the building that is over here on the corner that is non-conforming. It is shaped as almost like a semi-circle. It kind of goes wraps around the corner.
Yeah.
And it was zoned R15, residential only. So it was the only reason they were able to use it for something else was because it had kind of been grandfathered in. But it should be fixed because that parcel has been sitting empty for years now.
Yeah.
Because of the zone. So that's why I had initially asked for Jessica to fix that. Good news is we get to fix it tomorrow. So I just wanted to give you some history on that so when we go in tomorrow, you guys know.
If there's an issue, we're going to discuss it.
We'll discuss it tomorrow. Yeah,
I guess I would want to...
Who owns it?
I didn't mean to. What were you saying?
I just didn't want to say too much more in this meeting since tomorrow is official.
Well, this is official too. This is on our agenda.
On our agenda.
So we can say as much as we want about this.
My concern was that we not debate the issue of whether or not
No, we
zoning
can.
should be moved.
We can definitely debate. I mean, if it's on our agenda, so we can explore it to the fullest if we would like.
Then we should feel free to ask any questions.
Feel free.
Yeah.
I don't know who the owner is because Chloe misplaced my bag,
right.
so I don't have my paperwork. But that being said, from my perspective, when I asked, I saw that being a zoning issue that was hindering the use of a pretty prime piece of real estate in East Hampton. So that's why I had originally requested for us to change it at that moment. And I think the main reason that parcel is sitting unused is because of the zoning. You can't, since it's been abandoned, there's no use that can be grandfathered in other than residential. And that's a pretty key piece of the transition of downtown. It's like the first. It's kind of run down a little bit. It'd be nice to see, something more interesting go
It
there.
sounded like there was some commercial activity, there was interesting commercial activity there of some sort of a downtown, some nature.
Yes.
And in fact, there was a purchase and sales agreement subject to.
Right.
There being the ability to use the property with the zoning.
Right.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So, we'll parse that out with the planning board tomorrow. Now the other.
I apologize earlier for your experience in ordinance committees and what can be discussed in the ordinance. So
Yes.
I certainly defer.
No, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I think if anytime.
The newbie on ordinance.
It's good. It's
one committee I've never served.
questions are good.
So we're both newbies.
Questions are a good thing, and that's, us trying to come to the resolution of those questions in the best ways, we're what we need to endeavor for. Now, since the next thing on our agenda is restricting single-use plastic bags, let's jump right into that. I'm happy to jump right into that. So.
Okay, great. So there are many sub-layers to explore when we're looking at plastic bans. But I figured the first thing that we could do as a subcommittee is start a list of all of the arguments against a ban
Mhm.
and all of the arguments for a ban, and start from there, so that I want to make sure that this is vetted out in a way that the public feels that we really did consider both sides of the issue.
Mhm.
Because this is the type of social issue that, regardless of which side we end up going on, not everybody will be 100% happy
No.
with this. So in preparing for this and talking with some different people in the city and working for the city and so on and so forth, there were some key arguments that were coming out against the ban. So I thought we could go over those first.
Yep.
And then if you had heard of any other arguments against having a ban against plastic, we could add that to it. And then do the same thing for arguments for having a ban.
Sure. I think that's a good place to start.
Okay.
So, do you wanna go over the ones that you came up with first, and then have a little brainstorm?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
That sounds like a plan.
The very first thing, and I think this could be a potentially big thing. I gotta find my pen. Sorry. Is that when I talked with some people who were, I talked with what it meant to be a green community, and Maren Goldstein is the chair of our Green Energy Advisory Committee. And he was really explaining the difference between energy consumption versus waste consumption. And East Hampton, when we think about all of the ways that East Hampton has really become a green community, it's in the ways that we've conserved energy, not in the ways that we've conserved waste. So that if you look at the outlines of being a green community, the parameters there really are more about energy use, not about waste.
Definitely.
So I just wanted to make sure that that's put out there first.
Because I was in in the ground floor of becoming a green community.
Mhm.
Because I was, before that committee existed, there was another environmental committee that I was on as the city council liaison.
Mhm.
When we were in the initial stages of getting green community, and that was really, it was all energy related. In fact, we won a contest. We were supposed to get a free solar panel, and I don't think we ever got it.
Oh, really?
We wanted being East Hampton being one of the first communities to reach all the steps, and that we actually entered into a contest with South Hadley
Mhm.
to see who could conserve the most energy, and we won.
Oh, that's great.
But I don't think we ever got that free. I should email Mike. But I think this is while being a green community, having that status is mostly related to energy. I don't think it means we need to stop there.
Mhm. I
So,
agree.
I think.
But one of the ways that the fact that East Hampton doesn't collect trash becomes problematic for looking towards a plastic bag ban is that one of the effects that ordinance on the sale of the use of plastic bags in places of business is that the end result is not going to be benefiting East Hampton. It's going to be benefiting the companies that East Hampton brings their trash to. So, for example, different garbage companies, none of them are situated within East Hampton. So part of that bigger picture is we're creating ordinance that will switch the landscape of how we're using in East Hampton, but we won't have access to how much did we actually save on waste, because we don't have access to any of that data.
Right. So but that's mostly just a data argument about how much we are saving from going into landfills, as opposed to the more kind of tangible evidence of like seeing plastic bags floating down the street or in the park or in the pond.
Right.
Right. So I guess.
And I'm just laying out both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with all of these arguments against, nor do I agree with every argument for, but I want to make sure that we're at least addressing them. Because the other side to that is that...
Can I just back up one quick
Yeah,
second?
sure.
When you're talking about banning plastic bags,
Mm-hmm.
I was always envisioning the bags that you use the grocery stores as the bags
Mhm.
we're talking about,
Mhm.
except for the ones that are eco-friendly,
Mhm.
like Big E's has. They've switched to a biodegradable bag, is my understanding.
Mhm.
What about garbage bags, plastic garbage bags that can be purchased in the store and used to dispose of
Mhm.
trash in the landfill?
Mhm.
I don't think this would apply to that at all.
I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, and because, for example, well, I know, for example, Northampton, who passed this ban, they do have a municipal transfer station. So if you want to use that municipal transfer station, you must purchase a specific single-use plastic bag. You know, it's a blue one, right? There's different colors, and
Okay.
so they, even though they passed this ban, they're still using single-use plastic for their trash, just because I think, you know.
But that may also be part of the different levels of this argument, that yes, we don't collect our own trash, so we're not asking you to put your trash in a special bag, because we
Right.
don't have control over that end product.
Right.
But as a community, we do have control over how much waste is. The average consumer uses about 500 bags a year. So if you take 500 bags and multiply it by 16,000 people, that's about 300,000 bags that we're not using by the end of a calendar year. Multiply that by 20 years. I mean, the other side of that argument can easily be laid out that, yeah, maybe we're not controlling the end product of the trash, but we're really doing a lot to reduce our carbon. Would that be eco footprint, carbon footprint?
Well, I mean, there's a carbon impact for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
I would say it would just be
Mhm.
trash footprint.
So.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Another thing I think that I saw a lot of was the whole notion of the slippery slope effect. And I think with any social problem, you'll have that. Some people have very different degrees of how much they want government interfering with business, and regulating the use of bags is always something we need to consider. Another one is enforcing a regulation could be taxing for the individual businesses who have to comply to the regulation, and to the city in regards to forcing compliance with the measures. So there are two things there, and I think this needs to be considered later on in terms of if we do consider a different program or different ordinance for this, whether or not we would put in any lead time for businesses to have almost a grace period in which to
Transfer out in case they have a supply of bags that they need to
Right.
use. Yeah, I'm curious. Well, and I don't want to veer too far off, but I did notice in the breakdown of different municipalities that have implemented this, there is a listing of different fines. It seems like, but I didn't see anywhere where they identified their enforcement authority. Are most of these using their building inspector, their health, police? Do we know? Okay, so that's something that we need to find out. Okay, that's important.
It is important. And yeah. Okay. In past cities that have passed bans on bags, there was a concern, particularly from larger businesses, that people would go to the same. So if there was a big Y in East Hampton that suddenly did not allow consumers to get plastic bags, that people would instead go to the Westfield Big Y, and therefore that store would be losing business. So you could make the same argument for East Hampton, that if someone really wanted plastic bags, maybe they would go to another city. And I think we would have to determine whether or not that really was happening, or whether or not that's even, okay. All right, and
that one's a interesting one. It's a bit of a stretch to think. I would love to hear someone argue that, actually.
I think you would have as many people who would
come to the store with the
go to the store
recyclable
that had the
bags.
recyclable
Oh yeah,
bags.
that's on the
Oh,
other,
is
that's
it?
on the
As to the
pros.
one who, so I think you'd end up with the trash.
Yeah, it'd probably be.
Yeah.
But I just like I can't imagine being like, I really want to go to the grocery store, but darn it, they just don't have those plastic bags, so I'm gonna drive out of my way to go.
Except if they didn't have some sort of plastic bags for meats.
For meats.
Hmm.
Yeah. Can get.
Well, I think
I don't know how that all. I mean,
I think they
what
use
in
like a
your-
wax lined paper bag is what, at least what I've seen in Northampton.
Wax-lined paper bag.
They've made a transition to a type of paper bag that is kind of coated with a wax. So I don't know, it would be interesting to see how what the different
Put it in
options
the
are.
cloth bags.
Yeah.
Then it ends up doesn't get washed all the time,
Yeah.
and you get some other sort of health issues.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Well, that's Board of Health. See what they say.
Did I introduce you to Matt?
No,
I'm
that's-
so sorry.
that's
All of
okay.
a sudden, I was just going over. I'm like, wait a minute, you just said you didn't know who Matt is.
Yeah.
Matt, I apologize. Matt, this is Salem.
Hey, Matt.
Sally, this is Matt. Matt is a student at Westfield State,
Great.
and he's in the environmental science program.
Cool.
And really wanted to just see how this works at a ground level
Good.
at City Council.
Well, welcome. Hopefully we can solve the Pacific garbage patch one piece at a time here.
But did you have any questions or comments to add?
Just something I just thought of is you guys were talking about conserving energy and then talking about how this would be waste, but I think it's both. But maybe you wouldn't say that because you're thinking of a bigger picture and it's not directly to the city.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're throwing away energy because you have to use non-renewable resources to make the bags.
Yeah, I know. And
Well, I mean, and I think we'll probably get to this, but if the ban didn't work out, if we didn't feel like it was the right fit, one of the things that I think would make sense, because I feel like one of the issues with plastic bags is the fact that you collect them. Most people don't, at least we don't throw them out,
Right.
but there's not a lot of places to take them to recycle them. They don't take them at the transfer station. You can't recycle them there. There's, but some places I've seen have boxes where they recycle them. So that could be an interesting tact if it didn't work out to require businesses that use them to provide a receptacle to recycle them.
oh yeah, that's an idea too.
So, because, if I knew that I could collect all my plastic bags and then, bring them somewhere to recycle them that was convenient, then that would be definitely make my life a little easier.
Yeah.
So, are we at the cost of recyclables?
The cost of recyclable plastics, like Big E's has, I'm not sure what the cost actually is. And when I was doing research on this in cities that were successful in having an ordinance that restricted plastic, they actually held an environmental fair within the city and invited businesses to come to see the different products and have a price comparison. And so I was thinking that might be a really good way to, even if it didn't pass, if we had that kind of a...
To encourage different options?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
A fair of different vendors who specialize in environmental.
I wonder, so I know that I don't know if we're getting to it, but it's on here somewhere maybe, is the players who we want to invite into this discussion.
Yeah.
So I would say, and the reason I'm saying it now is because of the fair idea is the Chamber of Commerce, I think is going to be a really important piece in this puzzle. And so, if we did decide to have some sort of informational session fair type of thing for around renewables, renewable bags, the chamber could be really helpful. Maybe one of their networking by night things, someone could come out,
Oh, that would
it could
be a
be
good
combined
idea.
with something that's already happening to really target a lot of the businesses in East Hampton and
Yeah.
something they already go to.
So in East Hampton and most cities, there will be a Chamber of Commerce, which it's voluntary, right? You
Well, they
provide
pay
fee,
a fee to be
It's a
part of
membership
it. Yeah.
organization to promote
Advertise.
business in the community.
Yeah.
But every month they hold a networking night where you can just go meet other people in different businesses. So that is one possibility of where to have a fair, since they're all getting together for that anyway.
Yeah. JP.
I was just gonna say that I reached out to them when you were talking about this and asked,
Mhm.
I spoke to the executive director, just to give them a heads up, this is coming,
Mhm.
talk to your members, maybe there's something that we're missing, they should at least be aware, who knows who's doing what, and if there is an impact, we'd like to know what that
Right.
impact would be, so that whatever decision gets made fully is cognizant of
Mm-hmm.
those interests. I didn't get a sense that the chamber members used a lot of plastic bags.
A lot
Actually.
of them don't.
Yeah.
Or that, and that the thought was that maybe non-chamber members that use more bags.
Hmm.
If
Mhm.
you look at CVS, Rite Aid,
Mm.
maybe the major players for plastic bags,
Mhm.
and not your average storefront owner or business in town. So,
Well, I mean, when we get, I guess
it may
when
make sense to go directly to the businesses.
business, I think it'll be a combined effort, and we can once we get to the brainstorming. Like I've been trying to pay attention to as I patronize local businesses to see who does. There's
Mhm.
quite a few that I wouldn't have. I just didn't even think of that they do.
Okay.
Like Amy's Place.
Yeah.
They do plastic
They do,
bags?
but they do and styrofoam. Riffs definitely does. So I think a lot of the restaurants
They
when
do
they
have,
give
they do have
takeout.
food containers that are paper.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna say
Riff
plastic bags,
does.
but not
Yeah.
But not
Yeah.
styrofoam inside the bags.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, I would say a lot of the restaurants probably use plastic bags.
Mhm.
And then even some of the curio stores, like definitely Family Dollar for sure, I don't want to say convenience stores. Like there's one here and there's one on the other end. I'm sure they use plastic bags.
Yeah.
Pride. I don't think Shelburne Falls Coffee Roasters does. McDonald's has a form of plastic bag that they use for
So
if you
it's
get
a-
pancakes and
it's
stuff.
a strange plastic.
It is
I
kind of
wonder
a
if
strange.
modified-
It's a little different.
Uh-huh.
It seems like, but it might
Maybe
fall under.
that's the 4.0 milliliters of plastic.
Oh, yeah.
That
That's
was
like what
telling
kind?
me about all the different levels of thickness.
Oh yeah.
That is really into that.
So and maybe we can come back to the brainstorming, but do you want to go
Yeah.
over some of the arguments, or do we want to brainstorm some of the arguments against the ban
Mhm.
before we move on to the arguments for the ban? Do you have any other ones that you can think of, JP?
Arguments
Against having a ban.
I did hear one other
Okay.
argument. Joy made sure to talk to me about this. She said that a lot of people have come up to her to say that they thought that I felt I was living in Northampton and not East Hampton
Oh.
with my measures, and that they didn't want they just didn't want to feel like they were Northampton.
Okay. I would say probably, one against the ban is inconvenience. I guess that might fall in under the residents don't want is taxing for the business to comply. But I think they'd just be like, we're busy, we have a lot of things to be thinking about. This isn't like important in our daily
Mhm.
business, and is it going to cost us more money? So I think,
Mm-hmm.
but we already.
How would they evaluate the inconvenient argument? I'm not sure what would be inconvenient. Okay, you're going to use plastic, or you're going to use a more expensive, I think on the order of several pennies,
Right.
biodegradable plastic, or a substitute like cloth. Or maybe folks would get used to bringing their own bags and actually using them.
Right.
And studies have shown that consumer behavior changes after these laws change.
Yeah.
So people get used to it.
They definitely get it, but change is scary.
Mhm.
I would say they
What
might.
else would be-
Another part of the inconvenience is they might say, well, you know, those other bags aren't as durable or aren't as, you know, user friendly as the biodegradable bags. That's just one that's coming off the top of my head, but I bet you that's one.
Is the one-
I like the
current-
bag you can't see through.
Yeah. Or you know, I reuse those bags, and not having access to them would make me have to get some other type of bag.
And that was interesting too, because there's been a lot of scientific studies that show the life cycle of a bag from the moment it's first created to the end point. And there is no end point for a plastic
No?
bag. It just continues, whereas
Unless
for
they
the paper, there's
incinerate
an
it.
actual cycle of it. Yeah.
Which is not ideal.
Right.
I know that the community center uses plastic bags on a regular basis. In fact, puts out calls for plastic bags.
Yeah, and the director has gone on record as saying she would be really concerned that a ban on plastic bags would make it really hard for her to put meals into containers for families.
Right.
So that should probably go on record as an issue to be concerned about,
Right.
and at least to bring
But
into the discussion.
and then maybe.
Maybe those few more pennies a bag are the way to go.
Right, and you know, and maybe.
Her concern was the cloth bags. Really, there was really no way to know what those cloth bags that we put in your food in.
Mhm.
But I think, I mean,
Raw
cloth
vegetables.
is one, but you know,
They have to
Big
be
E is
clean.
using a recyclable plastic bag, right?
Right.
So I mean, you know, I guess we'd have to say, could she do the same thing with one of those bags that she's currently doing with the non-biodegradable plastic bag? So that I think that's one of those inconvenience questions. You know, it's like.
That,
So then-
that to me opens it up for grant money. Like we have a community center that really services people who are in poverty and in need of food, and they want to be a good community partner, but don't have the resources without this. Can you fund some biodegradable plastic bags for the East Hampton Community Center for the next X amount of years?
I mean, I guess we'll have to, because we don't have any hard data on the cost of these, do we?
No.
So like we don't know at this point. We don't know 1,000 non-biodegradable plastic bags cost X. 1,000 biodegradable plastic bags cost X. Here's the difference. I mean, I think we need to know that as we
Yeah.
move forward, because you know, and it's like as far as the community center or not, like if it's a big difference, people will be like, well, we should buy food with that.
Right.
You know, that difference. You know, so but that's just one little piece. That's just one little, you know, piece of this puzzle. But let's think of some more. Let's think of some more reasons why we wouldn't want to do this.
Dog owners may use plastic bags for
Picking up their dog waste.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I know that I use them for bringing my lunch to school, and it's funny because we recycle them at my house, and then I just take them out of the recycling, put my lunch in it, bring it to school, and I have a recycling at my school, and I literally have enough plastic bags from this year already that fills the entire side of my desk, you know, because I like stick them between my desk and the wall, and it's like my little recycling area. And then at the end of the school year, I clean them out, and I have, like, I stuff them all in. I have 5 full bags of plastic bags, and then I bring them home and recycle them again and reuse them. So I have this very interesting loop of use with plastic bags
That's
right now.
great.
But I don't throw them away because I don't believe in, obviously, throwing them away because they're not.
Yeah.
So let's think of some more. So that's one. Use it.
Some people use them as trash bags in small containers
Right.
inside their house, and that kitchen bag, and you have your bathroom bag, or
Yeah, like
the small little containers, and
So I guess.
you're probably not going to use paper with
No.
in that instance. So you're probably gonna use some sort of plastic.
Right.
And plastic bags, could you use biodegradable bags? Yeah.
For that?
a few,
Yeah.
you use them from the store, so, okay, I'm not sure, but it certainly would be a secondary use for the same product. Taking
Yeah.
what's home and then
Reusing it for that.
using it
Yeah.
for trash.
That's interesting.
Something else.
So that's another like inconvenience thing. I don't know. Some people just like to be against the environment and do things that aren't environmental.
True.
I mean, that's true. Like I was, so permit me to go
What
on a
contraire?
little, permit me to go on a little tangent.
Okay.
Can I please? So I was driving through town the other day, and I saw that. No, this is a quick one. This is a quick one. Up on Park Street. It was up on Park Street, and a truck was driving, and I saw two people riding their bikes on the side, and the truck was a diesel truck, and it had been modified. So when the truck went back past the bikers, he did something. He like pushed on the gas, and then this entire like black cloud of smoke just like went on these two people riding their bikes.
That's horrible.
And I looked it up. It's a thing. It's called coal rolling, and it's like something that people do with big diesel trucks. They modify them, which is against EPA law, but unless there's a local ordinance against it, you can do it, apparently. And they do it to people. They do it to Priuses. They do it to protest Obama, I guess. It's like a thing. It's a real thing. It's called coal rolling, and the smoke that it spits out is like has like hundreds of known carcinogens. It's like terrible, and people think that that's like a funny, cool thing to do, is to do that to people.
Yeah, nice.
So there's people out there that just don't have any regard for.
Well, hopefully most people will understand this is a good thing to do and we've considered it.
Right.
Something
Or
we
it's
decided
something that doesn't
it isn't
work.
the time for it right now, but
Well,
hopefully they wouldn't be contrary just to be
Just to-
contrary.
There's a lot of contrarians out there. Let's put it in opposition to defiant.
and at this point, we have, in the Commonwealth, there are 25 towns and cities who have already passed it.
Right.
And they said that's like 9% of the entire Commonwealth.
Yeah,
So
I think there's
we're
what,
not-
300. There's 300 cities.
351
Yeah.
Mhm.
municipalities,
So
25.
it's getting up there.
Did
All
you
right.
say you had somebody had a list of
Right here.
towns and cities?
Brookline, Barnstable, Bridgewater, Cambridge.
Mhm.
That's just the bees.
And they actually, a lot of different organizations do have price points for the environmental alternatives, but the ones that I were finding were all based out of the Boston area, so I figured it would be better for us to start fresh with the companies that are out here rather than try to fit this into Boston regulations or pricing.
All right, so I'm done thinking of reasons against it. You guys have any other ones?
I think we've covered quite a few.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody from the public comes up with more.
You never
we'll hear
know.
them.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And that's great.
Okay, so let's move on to arguments 4.
Mhm.
I think these are pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Do you want to highlight it?
Well, since people are listening and can't see the list. it'd be
Sure.
good to
Oh, yeah,
read
go ahead.
from the list.
Read
Yeah,
the
so
list.
from an environmental impact, certainly harms wildlife. Matt, I know you had more specific information regarding each of these, so if you want to jump in at any time, feel free to. But a lot of the studies of harming wildlife obviously look at land animals, but they also look at ocean animals. And although the ocean seems pretty far away, plastic bags billow out and go out to sea eventually.
Well, even if they end up in the pond, go to the Manhan, go to the Oxbow, to the Connecticut,
Mm-hmm.
make their way all the way down. So,
Mm-hmm.
and once they catch the current, they're like little underwater sails.
Yeah,
You know?
they really
Yeah,
are. I've like
absolutely.
seen them going by me when I'm tubing.
Yeah, and
Fast.
and then they'll also catch on things as well.
Mhm.
So,
So when they get to the ocean, tell us more about what actual humans get trapped in.
Well, turtles, for example, they might think they're jellyfish, so they'll eat them. They'll be in their stomachs, and then eventually they'll die. Or they break down into microplastics. So something like at the end, at the bottom of the trophic level, like a zooplankton will start to eat those. And so they'll accumulate levels of plastic in their body. Something bigger will eat them, and it'll go up and up and up.
You called the process the breakdown, what was the technical term?
When it breaks down, it's microplastics.
Into microplastics.
And that basically migrates up the food chain.
Disgusting.
Yeah, and if you want to see, I mean, it's a really significant problem right now. But the way that the ocean currents circulate, there's areas that are basically traps for floating plastic. So you get these giant islands of plastic, and then a lot of the seabirds will find these islands. They'll feed there. One really good example is what is it called? It's that bird that it's got a crazy. It's this beautiful little fuzzy bird, but it's a big seabird. And the name's escaping me right now. Albatross. It's an albatross, and the albatross will eat multiple types of plastic. They'll eat lighters, they'll eat like pieces of plastic bag, they'll eat bottle caps, and they will then just die a horrible death from eating all this plastic. And that's just one example. So if you want to see an interesting YouTube video, especially if anybody's watching at home, look up albatross and plastic. You'll see something that will make you very upset.
Also, when the plastic bags make their way out there, they can smother coral reefs. I mean, I guess that wouldn't be local. I guess that's more big picture again.
Well, remember, I mean, I think one of the things to consider is the fact that ocean currents are global, and that trash that enters the ocean here can end up anywhere. So it is kind of a steward responsibility to not be polluting the oceans.
I thought plastic didn't break down. It kind of stayed forever. Now we're saying that it breaks down into little micro pieces.
Well, it rips and tears. You know, each time it goes over a rock, a little piece of it will tear off.
Right.
And it's not breaking down, it's just getting into a smaller piece,
Micro
but
piece.
it's never.
Within the end of the food chain.
Mhm.
Sounds like what we all remember, for many of us remember as oil that breaks. It's out into the ocean. Oil from oil wells, from broken cargo ships, whatever. Then break down and get eaten by smaller animals and smaller fish, bigger fish, up into the food chain to people.
I think
So you're saying this replicates with plastic bags. Is that what you're suggesting the literature says?
I don't have like a study with me. Also, the other thing, when it breaks down, so when the plankton eat the microplastic, they provide 50% of the oxygen to the planet, so it's important to protect them as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so I think harm wildlife
That's
is.
fish. What about the other wildlife? Is
Well, I
affected?
think this would be
Turtles,
a good
fish,
Whales.
when
whales.
the arguments for wildlife at a global level, I think, are pretty well documented. The wildlife within East Hampton with Arcadia, I know Arcadia keeps track of all the garbage that they find in Arcadia and keep a record of any animal that they find injured from garbage that has been disposed of there. So I think we could also ask them to give a statement about it.
Imagine, birds could be an example that they might, take a piece of plastic bag to make a nest, or who knows what effects that has on them if they're using their mouth. So I think, all right, so we've parsed through the harm wildlife pretty well, and then I think we touched on the does not biodegrade.
Another way that it harms wildlife that I think also needs to be considered is when plastic bags block the drains of any of the,
True.
you know,
Sewer grades.
dams, the sewers, yeah. And I would assume that DPW might have at least some anecdotal evidence of having that happen before.
I think the wind blowing. I saw one at Millside Park last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I took a video of it. Did a little. American Beauty. Got some video evidence for us. I don't know if we're gonna be able to see it, but I think this is this is significant. So you can see it in the lower. I filmed the plastic bag going, and it was like moving pretty quickly.
Oh wow! Oh my gosh, that really takes off.
Right. So because I was like, I saw it moving pretty quick. And I knew we were
like, let me get a video.
I knew that we were talking about this, so I saw this plastic bag. Watch it. Watch
Okay.
it. It really picks up speed.
Must
So
have been a windy day.
we have some video evidence for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
JP, one of the things I was going to say is, since we have a digital copy of this, you could probably attach it to the minutes.
Mhm. Okay.
So, any other pieces on this you wanted to touch on?
The environmental
Yeah.
impact. No, I don't have anything to add to any of these, but if between now and the next meeting, I could certainly come up with more documented studies. If you would like to just have them as part of our ending file as to what we actually researched as part of this, I can come up with a bibliography.
Okay, so we want to move on to the next.
Mhm. Okay, so one of the reasons that I really started thinking about this was, if you look at the last year at the end of the year chorus recital at Pepin Center School, one of the songs that they sing is called "The Bag Lady," and it's about a woman who is making an effort not to have plastic bags, and she uses recyclable bags, and so on and so forth. Which got me thinking about the school curriculum and how much more my children know about the environment than I ever did at their age, and how we spend a pretty significant amount of time. So for example, Scholastic News Magazine, which all public school pupils receive and learn from, has many articles about this debate and whether or not it's good for a city and so on and so forth. They talk about the environmental impact. So the consistency of teaching that in our schools within East Hampton, and also having an ordinance that supports that, seems to be a very logistical consistency for creating how kids can create a change with the environment.
Agreed.
And the other one was, businesses may be hopeful that by having a ban on plastics, people will come to East Hampton specifically because of that to conduct their business and live and shop, and will do so more because of this measure. There is the bag share in Northampton and East Hampton already exists with the making recyclable bags. Right now, the owner of Eastworks donates the space for those bags to be made. So I do think that if looking down to the future, I do think there are substantial ways to be able to include different community members in an initiative of getting more information out there about, okay, here are your options, and if you wanna make bags, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. Leave that for later. Other evidence is that if you look at the East Hampton master plan from 2005, the master plan had indicated that the majority of residents really saw environmental sustainability as a priority, and there was hopes that we would continue to prioritize the environment. And I think that was really this. When did the green communities and the applying for green communities start? I know we got the designation in 2010.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like 2008 or 2009. I know that we passed because I introduced fuel-efficient vehicle ordinance.
Mhm.
I think it was 2 years before. So, and I've been on the city council for 10 years now, so I would have been 2005 would have been my first year on the council,
Mhm.
I guess. So, and I don't think it must have been after 2007. It was after, because I was a couple years in when I first wrote that.
Mhm.
I think sustainability is a big important point because
Mhm.
these bags they're not sustainable. So
No.
they're made with petrochemicals,
Mhm.
which are not a unlimited resource.
Mhm. Are there any other pros for a ban that I didn't include that you think should be included?
Nope.
Okay. And then the next step would be really laying out what would be the different choices of what we're looking at. So if we're considering ordinance, if we can get more detail about what other cities and towns have done. And I know that, Matt, I know you started looking at that and doing a comparison. So we have some common language that they've each used and the thickness of the bags. Is there anything else that really popped out to you?
A few different places talked about also putting something in there about paper bags. And also about defining a retail establishment or just exemptions to the ordinance in general.
Mm-hmm.
And there weren't too many. There's only, I think I found 3 exemptions to it.
Maybe the East Ham Community Center could be an example of an exemption to that, to having to not use plastic bags, because they're not actually selling anything at the East Ham Community Center. They're redistributing donated items that have come to the center. But
So aren't most bans on point of sale?
exactly.
Yeah, because you can't ban someone from, going to a store out of the community and then coming into the community with a plastic bag, being like, hey,
No.
those are banned here, you can't have that.
Not readily, no. I think the object was to raise the consciousness
Yeah.
and ban points of sale.
Yeah.
Matt, you had talked about something in there about paper bags, and I'm not sure what you meant by there being something about paper bags, except that are paper bags enough of a renewable resource that we want people using paper bags? I don't know.
Instead of plastic.
Instead of plastic, I'm not sure on what effect paper bags, the use of paper bags has on the environment in terms of having to grow more trees, or
Paper bags
what
have
impact that has.
From what I read, they have a more short-term negative effect on the environment versus the long-term. So with a paper bag will eventually biodegrade if it's exposed to sunlight. And the cons of the paper bags would be that they'll be more bulky to store, that they will, just the environmental impact of what it takes to get them to the consumer and everything. I mean,
Cut down the trees and process it.
Mhm.
Was there something in the legislation that you were referring to? These paper bags?
I didn't put it down, but I do remember they were talking about if they banned the plastic bags, then all of their paper bags had to be 100% recyclable. I don't know if that's already done. I remember that places were putting that in there.
Maybe something to consider.
When I was thinking about some of the choices, because there's so many different scenarios, I was trying to put them really as a spectrum of choices from the doing the least amount to the most amount. So if you look at table 1, that's where I just laid that out, where the least amount would be deciding just we don't want to have any sort of ban in East Hampton. We're not going to take any action on this after deliberating. To the other side, we're going to ban all plastic bags in all businesses. But there are a lot of in between. So one of them is providing an incentive for consumers who don't have a bag at all. So far, I've seen that at Big E's, where if someone doesn't have a bag, they can take their receipt and put it into one of the charity bins. I don't think it would be feasible for the city to be rewarding people for consumer choices and environmentalism. I don't see that. We could put it out there as an option, but I don't see that getting a lot of attention right now. Another one would be phasing out plastic bags over time and giving people more time to adjust. So this is a change that's coming, but you'll be able to get used to it. We're not going to force it upon you immediately and phase it out that way. Another would be to charge a tax for any paper or plastic bags, so that if a person gets a bag at all, they will have to pay for it. I've seen stores do that when, I don't remember which store in Northampton it was, but if you wanted a paper bag with a handle on it, you had to pay 5 cents per bag, whereas if you wanted just a paper sack, that had no charge to it. And I think to be realistic about that, that would be something, that would be a lot to undertake as a city to start enforcing either one of those scenarios. So
Can we add, and I think it's between no ban and city providing incentive to require businesses to use them to provide a recycling receptacle?
yes.
I think that's a potential step within those. And that also.
Are there recyclable uses?
Yeah, well, you can recycle. You can. I honestly don't know why you can't recycle them at the transfer station. You know, the one on Route 10. Don't know why, but I do know that I have seen receptacles for recycling plastic bags. I believe Stop and Shop is one of the places where I've seen that. So I think requiring a recycling, that's a step that could be.
Big Y, for example, takes all the bags that they get and they compress them into wood for benches that are the waterproof benches outside.
Like Trex.
Yeah. Okay, another possibility is what types of businesses, whether or not it would be a blanket policy for any business regarding if it's retail or restaurant or any type of business, or targeting only one type of industry.
Jeez, would
Well,
that bring a Supreme Court decision?
Yeah, my initial thought on that is it's you'd have to be equitable and fair across all like saying, oh well, you're a restaurant, so you don't have to comply, but you're a grocery store, so you do have to comply. I think that is might be a little difficult to.
I think there'd have to be some extraordinary reason.
Yeah.
To limit by type of business. Really extraordinary, otherwise it wouldn't hold up.
Yeah.
I would really like to put it.
No.
I think we could easily challenge the court.
Okay.
Unless you were a plastic bag selling business located in East Hampton. Right? So that would be someone that would have to be exempt from selling.
Like a gift bag?
No, like
Or-
no, like I
Or
own a plastic bag
manufacturer?
distribution company in East Hampton. That would.
Are you making a disclosure?
No, I don't. But I was thinking it would be interesting to, some entrepreneur should
Yeah.
move to East Hampton and come up with a
Yeah,
genius
whatever.
way to recycle these things into something useful.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of business that we would love to see, and give them a tax incentive for
There'd
it.
be some way to recycle them into a biodegradable, recyclable bag.
Right.
That then could be used in the communities that continue to pass these types of
Right.
ordinances, and that business could be here.
Turn them into solar panels.
Wow.
There's actually
Okay.
a whole website that's like, what is your, how would you use this plastic? And it's like, it gives awards to people.
Oh, really?
for coming
So
up
that'd
with
be very cool.
inventive uses of it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But
So now do we want to get an exhaustive list of who we want to invite for sure, or at least start that list?
I think we should start a list of who we want to invite and what will we ask them to speak to.
Mhm.
I think it's helpful to see what businesses are for it and what businesses that are against it. But I would like them to really think about why they would be for or against it. And sometimes it might be, I'm concerned about this because I don't know X, Y, and Z versus I will never support this no matter what. So.
Well, I think it would make the restaurateurs we should invite, because I'm but there might be a couple restaurants that don't use them, but I would say the majority probably do.
Uh-huh.
Chamber of Commerce representation, convenience stores, grocery stores, other miscellaneous retail, like Mount Tom's,
Manchester.
Manchester Hardware, big or small box national stores, True Value, like CVS.
And what about like all of the individual artists at the artist colony?
Right. Like people that sell their stuff, do they use plastic bags? Well, Subway uses plastic bags. I wonder what kind of plastic bags they use, and I wonder if Northampton. It'll be interesting. That's one of those nuances that'll be interesting because while we don't want to be Northampton, we are, similar demographic, somewhat, a little smaller, but we could, I think, learn from their experience with this. So it might make sense to reach out to Councilor Adams.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy to do that.
And there's a counselor in Greenfield, Rudy, who reached out to me as a resource. She was on the ordinance committee that passed it in Greenfield, and would like to talk about her experiences. So maybe even as a next step, asking them to come in to
Sure.
talk, both of them might be useful.
If they're willing.
Yeah,
If
we
they're
can
willing,
see.
or or a written testimony of it would
Uh-huh.
be fine. I mean, if they don't have the time, but I think that's that's a step that we can take
Mhm.
as we move forward. I think the mayor should probably be kept in the loop, I guess.
Mhm.
This could have potential. She might be targeted out for this. People might go to her being like, I heard this is happening. So having her know what's going on, I think is is an important thing. So she can say, well, it's actually the legislative branch of government is doing their job here.
Mhm.
As the executive, this is what I know, and go talk to them.
So when you're, as a next step, we could either have a meeting to ask counselors from neighboring towns, and there are people who are part of the Green Massachusetts who
Mhm.
are willing to come talk to different city councils and stuff.
Okay.
We could do it from that angle first, or we could ask people within our own community, come to hear what,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
So
What-
here's my thought on that. As far as, I think that if we reach out locally first, and then engage, take a temperature reading of where people are at.
Uh-huh.
And then, if we feel like we want to bring in, bigger guns,
Mhm.
I think maybe that would be a next step.
For the other counselors, you mean?
Or do it all together, so have our local people come in, and then, invite, whether it's counselors or whether it's someone from, an environmental organization that wants to speak on this issue, have everybody in the same room and see what happens.
Mhm.
I mean,
I would be fine with if we wanted to advertise for a forum on the state of plastic bags within East Hampton.
right, and I,
See what people wanted to say about it.
yeah, and I don't even think, we could call it a forum, but we could also just say that it's the ordinance
Hearing?
public, it wouldn't be a public hearing, but it's a public discussion,
Okay.
within the ordinance subcommittee as pertaining to,
Okay.
an adoption of potential plastic bag ban. And we don't necessarily have to make any decisions out of that particular meeting.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, especially if things get very heated, it might make sense just to let things cool down a little bit and then go back to it. And
Could you put into like a paragraph what that would entail, like a public discussion?
yeah, it would be a meeting of the ordinance subcommittee,
Mhm.
where the focus of the meeting is explicitly the ban of plastic bags in the community, and invite all of those players, saying, hey, we're going to be discussing this, if you want to have input into this, it would make sense for you to come.
Mhm.
And then when we run that meeting, we could have like a introduction, say these are some of the reasons why this has come in front of the city council, and what is the information behind those reasons. So let that happen, and then let people talk about what their impression is and how they feel about it. Whether this is going to put me out of business, this is going to ruin my day,
Mhm.
something like that, and then we can see where we need to go from there.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Okay.
When we have that public discussion, I think we should break down there are going to be different categories of people who are going to have an interest in it. So there are going to be business owners.
Mhm.
There are going to be environmentalists. There are going to, can we think of any other groups that may want to have their own time to speak?
I think what we can do is we can leave it a little open, and we can say, all right, so here's the introduction, and this is what the people that are supporting this have to say. All right, well, what do the business owners think? And then have their time, and then what does everybody else think?
Mhm.
And just leave it as a moderated discussion.
I think it's interesting that you're deriving a dichotomy between the environmentalists and business owners.
Right,
As
hopefully
opposed
we'll have
as opposed to business owners who may very well
Oh, yeah.
be environmentalists
True.
and may very much be in favor
That's true.
of what's going on.
Right.
I was thinking more from an inclusionist perspective that,
I think if we're fair and we give everyone an equal opportunity to speak their mind,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Moderated discussion.
then I guess my next question would be, how will we advertise this and for when?
Well, I think that's up to us. As far as the advertising, I think obviously it'll get posted. We can probably contact the press.
Did this meeting get posted?
Yeah, I have the agenda right here. Yeah, I know.
I know.
Nobody decided to
I
come.
want to make sure that we really reach
Yeah,
out.
nobody's here.
Well, and we
I'm
could-
a little,
I mean,
a little surprised.
Putting a little push on social media, you know, people could spread that around, say, hey, share the ordinance subcommittee is gonna be talking about this.
Okay, do you want me to create an event, or would you like to have an event created under your name?
No, I don't need to have it under my name, I think. That'd be fine for you to do it.
Not that.
No, I'm fine to moderate the discussion and you know, but I don't necessarily need to have it. It's fine.
Okay.
And as far as dates go, it would probably make sense for us to give a little bit of time for people to, you know when it's going to happen. So, you know, here we are at the 18th now. I'm thinking this will push us into May.
Late May, mid-May?
Mid to late May. I mean, our meetings are the 4th and the 18th. I mean, we could do like a May 25th, or if you wanted to go sooner than that, Tammy, we could go like the 11th, May 11th. Could be a potential.
I'm fine with pushing it out till, what did you say, the
25th?
25th?
Yep.
25th.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this in as ordinance.
I think that'll give us
Plenty
plenty
of
of
time.
time to be able to advertise it, and, I'll be done with school.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah.
Not me.
Alright, so what did we just say, May 25th?
May 25th, 6 p.m. in these chambers.
And it's a public discussion.
It will be, yeah, sure. We can call it public discussion. Or public's chance to give input. I guess that is a public discussion, right? JP statement.
To give some meat to the subject, usually there's, do we have a specific proposal written that says, this is the proposal?
Oh, that's important. Do we have a sample ordinance? We should, and if we don't, we might want to have at least a skeleton of what the ordinance would look like as, in terms of
Gives people something to.
parameters, penalties, enforcement, you know, and I think like timeline. Those are important things that we should at least by then have some sort of at least a skeleton of. So, I mean, good news is we have plenty of time.
Yep.
So maybe looking at a couple of model ordinances, or maybe a couple ordinances of communities our size or similar to East Hampton.
Well, that's where I think having a discussion
Prior to.
with city councilors from surrounding communities who have implemented that, what are some of the biggest pitfalls? I think that would be a good way to introduce it to them. Did you want to reach out to Jesse?
I'll reach out to Jesse. Yeah.
Okay. Now reach out to
The Greenfield.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anything else you want to cover on this?
Well, I think for the penalties, would we want to talk about who to talk that over with? I mean, one possibility is the mayor, one possibility would be the police, one possibility would be Board of Health.
Board of Health. I'm thinking of either enforcement. I'm just wild stab in the dark, but I think enforcement would probably fall under Board of Health or the building inspector. Board of Health seems like it's a better fit, but then again, does she really want to be making inspections? A lot of these places she's going to be making inspections anyway.
Do you want me to just send a letter to the mayor saying, we're considering this
Sure, and I was,
know?
our next meeting, I'm inviting Jackie Duda to come
Okay.
so we can see if we can start getting some resolution on the food truck
Could I
ordinance.
just think about this for
Yeah.
a second before we
Absolutely.
put this on Jackie?
Hmm.
I'm trying to put myself in the Board of Health
Jackie's
shoes.
the nurse.
And imagining running around all day, which she does all day
Right.
long, she's pretty busy, and doing enforcement. I guess it would be a stretch to see her office as a direct Board of Health when you think of foodborne illnesses, you think of fires and freezers that are breaking, that are being shut down, and food's gonna spoil, and safety inspections.
Well,
And
very.
it's to lay this on the Board of Health. I don't know, I'm having a hard time figuring out how that would be her responsibility, but maybe I'm missing something. So
I've heard of the Board of Health more often with styrofoam, because styrofoam is being directly on their food and drink.
Mhm.
We haven't even touched styrofoam.
No.
This is just about plastic bags.
And I think, I mean, to pin your thought about enforcement for a second, I think it makes sense to parse out plastic bags and styrofoam for now.
Mhm.
So, alright, so back to enforcement.
So I didn't have any other suggestions.
Yeah, I don't know,
Except to
I
say
mean,
that I think we ought to think about.
We should think about
Board of
this.
Health before we broach the subject with the Board of Health.
I mean, we can always ask her, too.
It would be good to have some additional
It might,
location, if every one of the 25 communities has the Board of Health, then I'd want to see their rationale and their justification and be prepared to share that with Jackie.
Right, and-
As opposed to.
that's why I wanted
What do you think
to,
about, taking on a new assignment?
right, that's why I wanted to, see what these other communities were doing for enforcement.
Yeah.
It's an important piece, whether they tie it to renewing their business license, whether it's some sort of, we're gonna have to figure, that's a piece that's pretty important to figure out. And I don't.
And I think that's all doable.
Yeah, let's do it, yeah. Yeah.
Would you like me to send a message to Arcadia and to the Department of Public Works to see if they have any evidence or experience with plastic bags? Has that been an issue or not?
Sure. Like any information that we have that is locally based is,
Mhm.
other than my video, which I think
I
speaks
think-
volumes.
I think you should just play that at the start with no words. We'll always have to
Or maybe
watch.
like a little light music in the back too.
That would be great. Oh, I'm on the
You
edge.
gotta-
I could start getting really silly.
Yeah.
Bringing it in
Is it
there.
at the end of the semester already?
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah, I'm on
Been at
vacation
it so
today.
long.
Today's my first day of vacation. This is very exciting.
That is exciting. Okay, so I can do you want me to create the letter for different businesses and just toss it around between us to
Yeah.
get the language that we want incorporated
I think that's
into
fine.
it
We're not deliberating
before I
any.
formally
We're not
invite them?
deliberating any content. You know,
Yeah.
we're just writing a letter to invite people to our meeting. I think that should be fine.
Mhm.
So I think that's no problem.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So, that being said, we do have on our agenda, the only other thing is the food truck ordinance. Because, I apologize, signs, but that's ongoing.
Mhm.
Obviously, working with planning board, but food truck. So I meant to contact Jackie to come to this meeting. It escaped me, so I'm going to have her come to our next meeting. Because I just want to meet with her one more time to, take a look at, how this could potentially affect East Hampton, and if there's any gaping holes that we need to fill, and if
Mhm.
not, potentially not pursuing any action. So, you guys have any particular thoughts on that issue? Okay.
No.
Well, then I would be more than happy to.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. We have adjourned 7:16.